Kathleen, I think he will probably go the distance.
Okay, Zinnia Wicket and Professor Kathleen Burke, thank you both. It's very nearly 4 minutes to 8.
Obese people are crippling drain on the NHS, or at least that's often the received wisdom. Free market think tank, the Institute of Economic Affairs, is today arguing, however, that the cost to the public purse has been overblown. Mark Tovey is the author of the Institute's report and joins us now. Good morning to you. Tell us about your calculations then.
Well, good morning. Yes. Well, we set out to debunk this notion that the obese people are just this, massive burden on the National Health Service and on the government. And what we did was, there have been lots of studies out there which have shown the cost of obesity for the health service is quite high. We did something which has never been done before. We looked at the other side of the coin, and we looked at the savings which obesity brings the government, because of course obese people don't live quite as long. They're not drawing pensions payments for quite as long. They're not suffering from as many of the chronic illnesses of old age, like dementia. So our research involved identifying all of those savings and adding them up, and we got about 3.6 billion. And we took those savings away from the gross, estimates of the gross cost of obesity to the health service, and we found the number was so much lower than we've been told in the past. It was about just under 2.5 billion, which is about 1.8% of the NHS's budget. So that just puts into perspective, if not the catastrophe we've been told it is.
It's the case, though, is it not, though, Mark Tovey? But while alive, per year of their life, obese people cost more to the NHS than people who are at a normal weight.
Yeah, that's correct. But of course, if they're dying, we found that there are about 40,000 deaths attributable to obesity every year in the UK, and each person loses about 12 years on average. So over that period, there's a long time in which they're not collecting pension payments, they're not costing the NHS any money at all, they're not, cashing out their winter fuel allowance and so on.
You could say the same, couldn't you, about kind of smokers and heavy drinkers, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could indeed say the same about smokers and heavy drinkers.
What's the value of a report like yours? Because presumably, you're not saying it's a good thing that obese people die earlier.
No, of course we're not saying that. It's obviously a tragedy, premature mortality for the individuals and for their families. What we are saying, though, is I'd like to think our report comes from a place of compassion, because we're tearing down this narrative which falsely maligns obese people as a burden to society, as a burden on the taxpayer. A lot of obese people are really suffering, and we should show them compassion. We shouldn't be worrying about how much they cost the government. And in fact, our report shows that the people who want to bash obese people don't have much of a leg to stand on, because the net cost, as we said, is very low. It's about 0.3% of the government's annual spending.
I suppose that what happens in the health service are more efforts to keep people healthy. They live longer. They get more end of life illnesses, and that's ultimately, I suppose, more expensive.
Absolutely, and of course the crisis which we've seen reported this winter in the NHS, A&E departments all around the country struggling under the weight of treating lots of 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds. And what we're saying is that obese people, well, then they're easing that problem, if anything, because in many cases they're not living to those advanced stages. They're checking out a lot earlier.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning, Mark Tovey, there from the Institute of Economic Affairs.